Hi, City Manager David Illner here with things to know what's happening in El Dorado. This past Monday, the City Commission took action on a couple different items regarding annexation. Annexation is when the city takes formal action to expand the corporate limits of the city. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about those two annexations that the Commission approved. The first one is what we would call the El Paso refinery, or the El Paso annexation. Now I'm going to point to this map behind me, but just so you have some context, we have the refinery road comes across here, which is currently the northern limits of the city. And then we have this right here is McCollum, 12th Street is right here, and of course Central is right here, so you kind of have an understanding of what's what on the map. So the first annexation that the City Commission approved was the El Paso annexation, which was 96.5 acres more or less, right here north of Refinery Road, where the former coastal refinery was located. The reason the city moved forward with this annexation was in order to prepare the ground as much as we can for a streamlined development process in the event that an industrial prospect selects that ground for industrial development. One of the things that we want to do as part of our proactive economic development strategy is to get our properties as far enough along in the development process to reduce the amount of time that a project has to wait or maneuver through the approval process. So by annexing this property, we've kind of shortened that process a little bit. The other side of the map that we have annexed property on is a property just over here on the west side of the turnpike, about 100 acres or so that the city actually owns. And then the southern part of that property is actually right-of-way owned by the KTA. These two pieces, the city actually has control of over more or less. We have an arrangement with KTA where the city can acquire that property if and when we have an industrial prospect that is interested in that property as well. So this 100 acres, again, the city owned the northern portion of that property, and KTA owns the southern piece here as kind of a laydown yard of sorts. And again, the city, the intent is to annex those properties to get them into city limits so that if an industrial prospect wants to locate on the west side of the turnpike on those properties, we've kind of shortened the amount of time it would take to annex and then ultimately get through the approval process. So these are two strategies that we are implementing in order to get these properties in the city limits, first of all, and then get them kind of ready for development, or as ready as we can in preparation for a potential industrial prospect. Presently, we don't have an industrial prospect that has decided to come to El Dorado and locate in either one of these two sites. Again, this is just a proactive strategy that we are doing to shorten that process. If the city of El Dorado is competing with other sites, and those sites could be anywhere in the nation really, the company is going to be looking at a number of different variables to include things like taxes, infrastructure, workforce, and they're also going to look at the regulatory process in terms of the approval process needed to get a project underway. A company is going to look at how long is it going to take us once we make our decision to actually getting our facility opened and operational. And every day that it takes to get that whole process done are dollars that cost the company business. So a company ideally wants to be able to come in, make a decision on where they want to locate, and then get their building up as quickly as possible. So as part of these two annexations, the city is doing what it can to reduce that time so that we can be ready in the event an industrial prospect chooses El Dorado. All right, so those were the only actions that the City Commission took on Monday. So I'm going to shift and focus or talk a little bit about the upcoming police chief interview process. As I've mentioned before, the city is in the process of recruiting a new police chief. Kurt Zeman, our police chief over the last several number of years, has decided to retire on April 1st. So we're in the process of finding his replacement. And interviews are scheduled for next week on January 13th. We're going to be interviewing 4 candidates, and we have a very rigorous process to really understand the candidates and their backgrounds, and ideally understand which candidate is the best for our community. There's one way that the community at large can participate in this process, and that will be a community meet and greet. Citizens will have the opportunity to meet all 4 candidates on January 13th at the Civic Center at 6:30 p.m. So if you're interested in coming down and meeting the candidates, you'll also have an opportunity to fill out a note card with some comments on what you think about them as well, and we'll take that information and review that, and that will help inform our decision making for the next police chief selection. Again, that meet and greet is on January 13th at 6:30 p.m. at the Civic Center, and everyone in the community is invited. So come on down and participate in that process. Following that, we'll review all of the information from the interviews and from throughout the entire process that we've developed, and hopefully shortly thereafter we'll be able to make a decision on the next police chief of El Dorado. Stay tuned for more information about that as we maneuver through that process. Well, that's really all I have for this week. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next week on Things to Know, What's Happening in El Dorado.